Are you prepared to have your mind blown by the complete history of every artifact in Tamriel? Have you strapped yourself into your Silt Strider? Are you going to be okay when I tell you that your favorite artifact has been ran through hundreds of times with hundreds of different owners? Very well, let us begin with part 2. The following are notes gathered over the past centuries on items of unimaginable significance. All have been seen, owned, and lost again and again throughout Tamriel. Some may be myth, others may be hoax, but regardless, many have lost their lives attempting to find or protect these coveted items. Ice Blade of the Monarch. The Ice Blade of the Monarch is truly one of Tamriel's most prized artifacts. Legend claims that the evil archmage Almian Selmo enchanted the claymore of a great warrior with the soul of a frost monarch, a stronger form of the more common frost atronach. A warrior, Thirdnar Ussi, was to play a part in the assassination of a great king in a far-off land and become the new leader. The assassination failed and the archmage was imprisoned. The Ice Blade freezes all who feel its blade. The blade circulates from owner to owner, never settling in one place for long. Apart from its ancient and mysterious origin, the Ice Blade finds itself within two significant events of Tamrielic history. First, the blade is found in Morrowind. It finds itself within the hands of a Dunmer sorcerer and acolyte of Molag Bal, Laren Tyranno. Tyranno occupies the stronghold of Rutherun, a fortified outpost on the island of Shilgarad in Vardenfell. Under Tyranno's discretion, Rutherun has been turned into a gladiator arena of sorts, where slaves are set to fight various wild beasts and Daedric servants for the amusement of Tyranno and his peers. Within these halls, Tyranno somehow acquired the Ice Blade of the Monarch and stores it here. The Imperial cult of Morrowind has invested significant resources into acquiring the artifacts lost in Vardenfell, as seen by previous entries, such as the Boots of the Apostle, and future entries such as the Ring of the Wind and Skullcrusher. The Imperial cult would first order a priestess named Adusam Siacernareran to secure this artifact from sorcerer. She failed, however, and gets herself held captive and used as a slave fighter at Tyranno's behest. The Imperial cult would be forced to resort to different means to complete this mission and recover their lost priestess. The Nerevarine would find himself under the employ of the cult, tasking him with the recovery of the blade, freeing Acernareran, and ending Laren Tyranno's occupation of the stronghold. Upon the return of the Ice Blade to the Imperial cult, the oracles are so relieved that they allow the Nerevarine to hold the artifact for safekeeping. My dear Nerevar, being a fair scholar and student of history, would take the blade back to Terrassa Aram at the Mournhold Museum of Artifacts. As we know that Mournhold was sacked by an Argonian horde in 4th Era Year 6, we have no idea where the artifact spent its time between the preceding years before its next recorded appearance. Nor do we know how exactly it came into the possession of its next wielder, Ulrich Frostsword. Frostsword appears to be Nordic in race and name, suggesting that he did not personally raid Mournhold and take the blade, nor would he inherit it from an Argonian forefather. It can likely be assumed that whichever farm tool took the blade would have ended up dead, with the sword changing hands an innumerable number of times before landing in the possession of Frostsword. We can also assume from his name that Frostsword became known for his use of the Ice Blade. His renown for the weapon would be his own downfall. Sometime before 4th Era 201, Frostsword would find himself in a dispute with another hero, that of Grenwulf the Brawler, as discussed previously as the wielder of the Fists of Dagoth. These men would have an argument over which of them and their fighting styles were more effective. Frostsword suggests that his blade and swordsmanship stand out beside Grenwulf's use of fist fighting and barbary. Grenwulf suggests that Frostsword is a pussy who is only as talented as his tools are strong. Both men would be proven right, wrong, and dead as they decide to test their techniques against the webmother spider occupying Cromvangur Cave, who proceeded to brutalize them, and then pulverize them, and then annihilate them. Thus the Ice Blade would lay in this cave until someone could reclaim it. The last Dragonborn would take up this task, finding out about the pair's dispute through Adonato Leotelli's writings, the Dragonborn deciding to use a third and better technique called not being a weak-ass bastard. It would brutalize and then pulverize and then annihilate the spider and recover both the artifacts. To his discredit, Both the spirits of the stupid adventurers would aid the Dragonborn in this fight, making the 3-on-1 rather less impressive. At the time of this video's release, this is the last known record of the Ice Blade of the Monarch, the Lord's Mail. Sometimes called the Armor of Morrowind or the Gift of Kynareth. This is an ancient cuirass of unsurpassable quality. It grants the wearer power to absorb health, resist the effects of spells, and cure oneself of poison when used. It is said that whenever Kynareth deigns the wearer unworthy, the Lord's Mail will be taken away and hidden for the next chosen one. As stated in this book, Morrowind was the first possessor of the Lord's Mail. Acquiring it from his mother, the demigod bull would utilize the mail to secure victory for the human slave revolt of Alesia against the Daedra-worshipping Alites of First-Era Cyrodiil. Morrowind would wed Alesia, and their part bull, part dragon, part human children would rule an empire in Cyrodiil for many generations. However, it is unknown what happened to Morrowind after his beloved Alessia's death. He may even be alive today, as his divine nature would extend his lifespan. It is known that his armor would not stay with him, however, as this armor would be seen many times throughout the successive eras. It is rumored that Kynareth herself disposed her son of the armor, claiming he had grown arrogant and no longer worthy following the Alessian revolt. As Yadram Bagarn describes in this book, the mail will remain hidden and present itself for a next chosen one, suggesting that the possessors of the artifact are to be those favored by the divines. The next chosen one would be the eternal champion of the Imperial Simulacrum. The details have been lost to time, but it is rumored to have been located within the reported burial crypt of Kynareth herself. This crypt's location is unknown, but has been rumored to change location and appear and disappear as the Lord's Mail is needed or unneeded. This can help explain the changing appearance of the artifact over time, as it sometimes appears as a blue-green mithril plate armor, to a golden chainmail, to the black and red Akaviri-inspired depiction it has retained in the recent years. This would also explain why today, the armor bears the red dragon of the Septim dynasty, despite supposedly being created thousands of years before Tiber Septim appeared and conquered the known world. After the Eternal Champion finished his ambitions of defeating Jagartharn and freeing the Emperor, the Lord's Mail would disappear from his possession. It would surface not long later, during the events leading up to the warp in the west. The artifact would once again lay in an unknown tomb, where word would get out about its appearance, and an unknown member of a knightly order would travel there and claim it for himself. Some accounts say this individual would be the driving force behind the warp in the west, although this is impossible to know. Sometime before 3rd Era 427, the mail would end up within the Imperial Legion's Order of Ebonheart, where they stored it at Castle Ebonheart. The local legionnaire, Furius Acilius, would desert his post and take the cuirass with him. Acilius would take the cuirass to a hideout beneath the castle. The Nerevarine, in an attempt to gain favor with the Legion, would vow to recover this artifact. Upon investigating its disappearance, the Nerevarine would track down Acilius to his hideout, finding him in the process of trying on the armor. Upon slaying Acilius, the Nerevarine would return the artifact to the knight, Varus Vantinius. Later on that year, these two would duel for the title of Knight of the Imperial Dragon, where the Nerevarine, predictably, came out on top. Now the top dog within the Legion in Morrowind, the Nerevarine would donate the Lord's Mail and other Legion artifacts like Chrysabeer to the Museum of Artifacts in Mournhold. After the raid on the museum by the Argonians, the artifact would change hands again, and again, innumerable times. The only recorded mentions would be after the Great War, when a group of Blades would recover the artifacts from bandits. The Blades would be unable to hold onto the cuirass, however, as it is next recorded to be used by a group of Alec-Ear mercenaries near Fort Greymore in Skyrim. Emperor Titus Mede II would come to learn of this fact, and request the Imperial General of the Skyrim Civil War, General Tullius, to recover the artifact. The Emperor believed that the repossession of the Lord's Mail would legitimize the Empire in Skyrim, claiming the favor of Kynareth to further drive the Skyrim citizens against the Stormcloak cause. The last Dragonborn would too learn of this plan to recover the Mail, and he would intercept the Alik'ir on the great plains of Whiterun Hold. After such a long time in the possession of the unworthy, the armor adopted a curse upon whoever bore it, burdening them with extreme fatigue. The last Dragonborn would then take the armor to the shrine of Kynareth at the Temple of the Divines in Solitude, where the curse would be removed. It is unknown if the Dragonborn would return the Lord's mail back to General Tullius as the Emperor wished, or if he kept it for himself. The Dragonborn may even actively fight for the Stormcloaks, bestowing legitimacy as the Blessed of Kynareth to the rebel cause. So, based on its history, it is only fitting that the Lord's mail lay in the hands of someone special like the last Dragonborn, and it is absolutely likely that this cuirass be involved in whatever prominent future events take place within the realm of Nirn. A Mace of Molag Bal. Also known as the Vampire's Mace, the Mace of Molag Bal drains its victims of magicka and gives it to the bearer. It also has the ability to transfer an enemy's strength to its wielder. Molag Bal has been quite free with his artifact. There are many legends about the mace. It seems to be a favorite for vanquishing wizards. True to Bagon's description, the Mace of Molag Bal is found in many legends across Tamriel. Its first known appearance would be in the hands of Molag Bal himself, during the Plain Node of Second Era 582. The vestige, upon utilizing the innate powers of the Amulet of Kings, would defeat Molag Bal in single combat, wounding his soul for generations and concluding the Planemeld. Molag Bal's mace would not surface again in recorded history until the Third Era, during the events leading up to the warp in the west around the Iliac Bay. An unknown actor, some claim as to be the agent, would summon Molag Bal on the 20th of Evening Star. Molag Bal would speak with this individual, tasking them with the assassination of a mage. Upon completion of the contract, an acolyte of the Daedra located the summoner, offering the mace as reward for their favor to Molag Bal. Several decades later, Molag Bal himself would once again bestow the mace on a hero, this time the Nirivarine. Upon contacting the Daedric prince at his shrine in Yansuramus, the Nirivarine would slay what Molag Bal describes as a fat, ugly, lazy Daedroth named Mentana who spends too much time fiddling, and not enough time enslaving the innocent. Mentana's death would result in Molag Bal transferring ownership of the mace to the Nirivarine. After his disappearance, following the unfortunate defeat of me at Red Mountain, the mace would return to Molag Bal. The next appearance would be during the events of the Oblivion crisis, when Molag Bal, true to his frequent shitfuckery, decided he wanted to ruin some guy's life just for the fun of it. Thus, Petilius, an imperial former adventurer, would be the Daedric prince's subject of torment. Petilius lived a chaotic life prior to Molag Bal's interest in him. He would eventually settle down and attempt to live a life of peace and tranquility, swearing a sacred oath to never again raise a weapon against fellow man. Molag Bal would task an adventurer, the hero of Kvatch, with fucking with him so much that Petilius would lash out in anger and strike the hero with a weapon. Petilius would try to stay true to his vows, refusing to fight back against the hero of Kvatch despite being slapped around countless times. However, the pacifist held a weak spot that would soon be exploited. You see, Petilius used to have a loving wife, but one day while he was out adventuring, the wife would catch a fever and die quickly and alone. Petilius would never forgive himself for being absent during her final hours, and spends much of his time by her graveside praying and speaking to his late wife. The hero of Kvatch, an absolute bastard, would lay a weapon down near the grave, slap the fuck out of Petilius, who would be so offended by this disregard for the one he loved that he would pick up the weapon and bash the hero of Kvatch's head in. Upon death, the hero would be returned to Molag Bal's shrine, where the very amused Molag Bal offers the gift of the mace. This artifact would go unrecorded until after the Great War, where the mace would be used by some random-ass necromancer in Skyrim, killed and looted by a member of the Blades. Just a short time later, the mace would somehow no longer be in the possession of the Blades, being found locked away in chest in 4th Era 180, found by an entirely unrelated Blades member. The last relevant use of the mace would be in 4th Era 201, again in Skyrim. Molag Bal would communicate with the last Dragonborn in a forgotten shrine in Markath, tasking him with ruining another person's life. Molag's target would be a priest of the rival Daedric prince, Boethia, named Logrolf the Willful. Molag blames the dilapidated nature of his Markarth shrine on this priest, swearing to give the mace as reward for his captive. The last Dragonborn would trick Logrolf into following him back to the shrine, where Molag Bal ensnared him in a spiky trap, and instructed the last Dragonborn to slap the fuck out of him. Eventually, Logrolf would submit himself to Molag Bal, and the mace would be gifted to the Dragonborn. With such a long and storied history, it is with no uncertainty that the Mace of Molag Bal will once again return to Tamriel in a significant capacity. Masque of Clavicus Vile. Ever the vain one, Clavicus Vile made a mask suited to his own personality. The bearer of the mask is more likely to get a positive response from the people of Tamriel. The higher his personality, the larger the bonus. The best-known story of the mask tells the tale of Avalea, a noblewoman of some renown. As a young girl, she was grossly disfigured by a spiteful servant. Avalea made a dark deal with Clavicus Vile and received the mask in return. Though the mask did not change her looks, suddenly she had the respect and admiration of everyone. A year and a day after her marriage to a well-connected baron, Clavicus Vile reclaimed the mask. Although pregnant with his child, Avalea was banished from the baron's household. 21 years and 1 day later, Avalea's daughter claimed her vengeance by slaying the baron. This historical account may be the best-known story recounting its use and power, but it is not the only depiction of the mask. In the Iliac Bay, shortly before the warp in the west, the mask makes a minor appearance. Much like the situation described with the Mace of Molag Bal in the previous entry, some hero would summon Clavicus Vile on his summoning day of the first of Morning Star. Clavicus would task this individual with the elimination of Rogue Werewolf. Typically, Lycans were quite friendly with Clavicus and his minions, as a significant portion of the Daedric Prince's power is tied up in his dog, Barbas. After defeating this uncooperative werewolf, Clavicus Vile would bestow the summoner with the mask. The next appearance of the mask would be in 3rd Era 427, in Morrowind. A Nordic necromancer by the name of Sorkvild the Raven would be utilizing it for nefarious purposes. He lived within a tower near Dagoth, an important monument to followers of Clavicus Vile, as the slowed necromancer and Clavicus worshipper. And Agasta previously occupied the region. Sorkvild would later be slain by the Nereveri on a quest from the Morrowind Legion, and the mask fall into his hands. Within 6 years, the mask would again be reclaimed by Clavicus Vile, to be redistributed to a new champion in the region of Cyrodiil. This champion would be the hero of Kvatch, who upon communicating with the Daedric Prince at his shrine, would task the hero with retrieving another of the Daedric Prince's artifacts, Umbra. On recovery of the Umbra sword, the canine aspect of Clavicus Barbas would warn the hero of Kvatch against completing the request, stating that the return of Umbra to the Daedric Prince would spell his ruin. It is unknown whether or not the hero of Kvatch finished his mission, returning Umbra and receiving the mask, or if he simply kept the powerful sword for himself. We know for sure, at least, that the mask would be back within Clavicus Vile's dominion during part of the 4th Era, as he would attempt to leverage it in a bargain with the last Dragonborn. The Dragonborn would come across Barbas in the wilds of Falkreath in Skyrim. Barbas, having been abandoned by his master for being too annoying, would request company in the journey back to the Clavicus Shrine in the Juro Mountains. Clavicus would task the Dragonborn and Barbas with retrieving another of his lost artifacts, the Rueful Axe, from a wizard engaged in a previous bargain. Upon retrieving the axe, the Daedric Prince had a final bargain to make with the Dragonborn. He could keep the axe, providing he used it to slay the Daedric dog, or hand the axe back to Clavicus in return for the mask. Once again, it is impossible to say which option the Dragonborn took, or where the mask resides these days. This has been the second part of the series on the artifacts of Tamriel. I want to thank you for your participation in watching, and all the support received on the last iteration. Please consider liking this video, or subscribing to the channel to keep updated on when the next part is released. Oh, and make sure to let me know how you think of the new style of videos represented by the artifacts, or if you have any suggestions for future content. Thank you and good night.